Plane, a film made straight for DVD but ultimately made it to movie theaters because it stars two notable actors, the number one being Gerard Butler, and the other guy is from The Wire Season 2. I don't know his name, I never knew his name, I just know he's from The Wire and many other things like Entourage as Warner Bros. Executive, but I never knew his name. So Plane is about a captain of said plane who is carrying passengers as well as a murderer and has to land a plane that got struck by lightning in midair. He lands it into unknown foreign territory, and from there on it's a survival film and just trying to get free and safe. Now, Plane, as I stated, stars Gerard Butler. If you're unfamiliar with him, then you haven't watched some pretty damn good films, such as Law Abiding Citizen and my favorite Gerard Butler film of all time, Rock'n'Rolla. One thing I can say about Gerard Butler's acting is that he's really good with accents. In Plane, he plays as a Scottishman. In Rock'n'Rolla, he was more like an Englishman, Brit of the sort. And that's one thing I do like about his acting, is that when he has to put some more into it, for some reason he uses his voice to put more into it. Otherwise, he really just acts usually just almost the same with some tweaks here and there. But that's why I loved him in Rock'n'Rolla, because he did so much in that film. In Plane, he just kind of acts like Gerard Butler with an accent, which isn't bad. The acting in this is super mediocre, but not terrible. The premise and the plot of this film, I'll admit, and this is the best thing I can say about Plane, there was one event near the beginning, it was about 20 to 25 minutes in, there was actually one unpredictable event that happened, and I did appreciate that, but around that, everything about the premise and the plot and the story of this film, again, been there, done that, super mediocre, but not terrible. This is definitely a straight for DVD kind of film, but it was made mostly adequate enough, not well made by any means. I feel like, for some reason, when I was watching this film from the halfway point to the end, I feel like Christopher Nolan could have wrote and directed this, in the sense of, if he had, this would have actually been a pretty damn great film. Because there were aspects of it by the end of this film, like, in Christopher Nolan films, whenever there's a high-octane part, you can kind of not just feel it, but you experience it through the audio immersion, and they kind of had bits and pieces of that scattered by the end of this film, and I did appreciate that. And I'd like to preface and state that Christopher Nolan had nothing to do with this film, and thank God, because this is a super mediocre film. But this isn't a terrible film. I don't really have, honestly, very bad things to say about this film. The worst that I have to say about this film, Plane, is just that it's super mediocre, bare bones, generic, cliche, predictable, but it goes through the motions entertainingly enough. And it's really odd, because I got on Rotten Tomatoes, and last I checked, this is sitting at a 70%, which is really good, especially for a film like this. Now, I'm glad that this film got such rave reviews, at least in the aspect of Rotten Tomatoes, which they're usually way off, but it's besides the point. Personally, Plane is entertaining to an extreme fault. You'll be entertained at how enthusiastic the filmmakers of this film were, but you'll be severely let down in the sense of basically everything else. So, I don't want to give this a terrible rating, because this is not a terrible film. but this is not a good film by any means, by any stretch of any terminology that I have used thus far. So overall for me, Plane, I'm just going to give it a 5 out of 10. It's not terrible, it's not great, it's not even good, it's just there. A 5 out of 10 for me is just kind of a there movie. Doesn't really do any harm, doesn't really do any good. It's just for entertainment values, mainly for at your home. So, 5 out of 10. Thank you. If you would like to support my reviewing passion to the fullest, please click the link in the description of this video to subscribe to my OnlyFans. Thank you.